Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse Collins, and I am the host of the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, a show right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. On the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast, we take a deep look at individual issues and stories that are going on in the wrestling world. Each episode is about a different topic, and we take a thorough and educated look at things ranging from current booking trends to breakdowns on individual performers and angles to investigations into different fan cultures across the industry. In addition, we keep a close eye on the wrestling media, and as a professional journalist, I bring a unique perspective to how current issues in wrestling are being covered and discussed through the wrestling media. We have a revolving series of guests from across wrestling punditry joining us on each episode, and we hope that you make the choice to give us a listen on wherever you get your podcast from.
After the holidays, there's so much to clean up and get ready for the coming year. This leaves me exhausted and a lot of things falling off my to-do list. It's time to lock in, and Omaha Steaks delivers everything you crave to reset after the holidays. An order from them means having high-quality Omaha Steaks on hand at all times. I'm a big meat lover myself, and I always go with medium rare. But there's also plenty of poultry and other options available. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. A family-owned company with over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry. Let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their end-of-season sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code YUM at checkout. That's OMAHA steaks.com, promo code YUM. Terms apply. See site for details. Go to www.omahasteaks.com to get 50% off site-wide during their end-of-season sale. And use promo code YUM at checkout for an extra $35 off. Minimum purchase may apply. Thanks to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. So faster fingers down. Dance tonight together. Hear everyone singing.你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for January 20th, 2026. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed. wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. And if you want to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you set up a one-time or reoccurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts, it's your old pal, Mike Spears. Join alongside your other host, Case Lowe, in case apparently there's going to be a ice storm coming to Texas in like 3 days, and I'm already starting to get emails from people trying to get me to put in a generator. This is what middle age looks like, bud. Just prepare yourself.
That sounds very bad. It is ungodly cold here. You know, this is sort of in the time of the year, as I was texting somebody yesterday, this is the time of the year that I start looking at home prices in San Diego. This is the time of the year that really makes you question if Chicago is the greatest city in the world. And even as somebody who's now lived here for almost 8.5 years, this particular stretch of these last 3 days, and then it looks like what we're getting this weekend, is about as cold as it gets here. And I am not looking forward to it.
I just feel like the older I get, my inability to bear with the cold has intensified. And maybe some of this is that my barrier to deal with cold is on the lower end just because of, you know, upbringing and living in
geographically, you've always been in convenient locations to avoid the cold.
Right. Yeah. So even like I find myself now getting to a point, even when it's just like freezing out, walking the dog, where it's like, all right, I'm getting a pair of tights on, and then I'm gonna put a pair of track pants over that, and I got my hand warmers, and I'm like, I don't think I was this way not even 15 years ago. Like I feel like that it's going to get down into single digits, and the weather output just looks insane for what it could be, and it's probably too early to even do like this. But like I'm already in my head going, okay, I have bought a baklava. I have never, like, in my teens and in my 20s, like in the Carolinas, never like occurred to me. Love snowstorms whenever they would hit in the Carolinas, but you just about turned 40, and now that's all I care about is, okay, I'm just hoping that, you know, I just want to stay warm. I don't want to lose power. That's my concern now.
I've really hit a point where the cold weather itself does not bother me. I still hate snow and ice and will always hate snow and ice. It's really just, it's the mobility and the transportation stuff that I have an issue with. But when it's just, you know, like I think it's supposed to be like a -30 wind chill this weekend, which obviously I won't be outside a ton. I won't be celebrating in that. But if I need to walk somewhere, I can do that. I'm okay with that at this point in my life. It's just anything that precludes my travel that really bothers me.
Yeah, and especially with like the L and all of that, just like the fear of icing it and being able not to be able to have that, I feel like is crippling in an area in Chicago. Whereas my reaction to all of this is making sure I have enough pet safe ice melt, and basically going like, well, it looks like this weekend might be a good weekend to make chili and not go anywhere.
I always like when it gets super cold out here and the L freezes, because then they have to set the tracks on fire, and I always think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little Mad Max, a little like Escape from New York. But if they ever do a new one of those, case that's what they have to do with Snake Plissken. He has to deal with the L being on fire.
It's got a little Great Depression vibe to it, also.
Oh yeah,
just like, this is what they did in the 20s, and there's not a better solution. In 100 years, they haven't gone, we won't set the tracks on fire, we'll do this instead. It's still, we got to set the tracks on fire. And I pop for it every time I see it.
And you know, like China has figured out this problem. And
don't get me the Chinese infrastructure, my favorite hot topic right now, about how they're just kicking our ass in every single possible way.
Imagine a maglev L. Like, I mean, at that point, it might be too fast, actually, for like the city limits kind of thing. But like, instead, we just have to set the fucker on fire whenever it gets below like 12. You know, like that's the Chicago way, I guess.
Well, this is deep, nitty-gritty Chicago public transportation talk, and I do apologize, as I imagine we probably have a lot of people that are either listening for the first time or haven't listened in a while and want our thoughts on the Big Boss Shimizu stuff from Korakuen Hall, and we will get to it. But, you know, in Chicago, they just began a construction project for the State and Lake CTA stop, which is it's not a red line stop, but the red line stop is right there. And then your green, pink, orange, brown lines are through this state and lake stop. And this state and lake stop has been there for 100 years. And if you're going to go towards the more outskirts parts of the city, like if you're going to go to the United Center, you can get it, you get there that way. If you're going to go to Riot Fest, where that is, you have to take the pink line there that way. And so the State and Lake is like the central hub downtown. It's right next to the Chicago Theater, which I was just there watching Brian Regan do stand-up comedy. Very funny show. Would recommend when he's in your town. But that is now under construction, and it's a 3-year construction project in which they're like trying to build like a dome, basically. And I'm sad because it's a train stop that's been there for 100 years, and it's in a bunch of movies, and you can see it kind of evolve throughout Chicago's history. But they say it's going to be 3 years, but the train stop that I live by now was under construction from June 2021 to July 2025. And that was supposed to be a 3-year project that took 4 years. And I feel like it was less of an undertaking than what they're doing to this other thing. So I bring all that up to say, if this was China, I think it would be done in about 9 months. And Chicago, I think it's going to take 5 years. And it's going to make traveling from downtown out incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it's one of those things that at least like I know that like for a area like Dallas Fort Worth, the fact that it has no mass transit, that's just, that's why there's no World Cup finals going to be there, is that they don't have that. But like the idea of mass transit has always like made me even as a kid, like the idea of going on a subway seemed like such a like magical kind of thing. And I guess that's because the only way you get anywhere is in the back of your parents' car in Dallas Fort Worth. So there's aspects of it, but like the idea of like ruining like a hub or having a hub shut down for essentially like 3 or 5 years for renovations is just one of those things that is so alien, because the answer for that in the Metroplex is, oh, we're just going to go build that connector even higher. So if you have a slight sense of like a fear of heights, you're not going to like want to take this way to go to Garland to go see the TNA Impact debut on AMC. Well, just two different worlds that we live in.
Yeah, the thought of living in a city without public transportation at this point sounds pretty nightmarish to me. I do love the Chicago CTA for all of their flaws. I still think it's such a great system, but this State and Lake stop going under construction. And I know the 4 people from Chicago that listen are going to go, oh, well, you could just go down the street to the other one. I know, but State and Lake is the most convenient. It's
and I know I'm being Pollyannish about how majestic like these stops are. But
it's just like, okay, so there's a venue here called Thalia Hall. GCW actually runs there sometimes,
I know
which is it's such
a
shame because it's such a beautiful venue, and GCW is there, which is just unsettling to me. But, for whatever reason, Thalia Hall has just the most loaded lineup of shows in the first half of 2026. And it's a building that's roughly the size of another venue here called the Metro. The Metro takes me 20 minutes to get to. By train, it takes me an hour to get to Thalia Hall because it's public transit inconvenient, but it's still, for me, cost effective because I don't have to Uber both ways. Sometimes I'll Uber home, but like now State and Lake is under construction. It makes it way harder to get Thalia Hall. These are the things that even as a grown man that pays taxes and lives on his own, these are still the things that I'm most worried about in life, which means I have a very good life and I can worry about things like this, but it is quite obnoxious.
No, I hear you. It's I'm getting inconvenience in my neighborhood because they're taking out sidewalks in the park that I walk the dog. Like it's absolutely a charmed existence.
That's
I fully admit
it. That's a tough one.
But it's just like, okay, now I have to deal with people that just like, they will just cycle with their golden retriever or their golden retriever or German shepherd without a leash or anything connecting them. And they'll go blazing and the dog will just be trying to keep up. And then they see other people and dogs. And it's a madhouse here. Like I want to be named like the czar of my neighborhood and get everything fixed up because I feel like there's a lot of things that need to get changed.
Quick programming note before we get into our Korakuen Hall review. I will be on assignment next week in the lovely Orlando, Florida. and thus will not be able to record a podcast. Next week would normally be when we do a Those Days episode. I assure you those are coming, and we will try to double up here in either February or March, and we now owe you one for the month of January because we're not going to get one done this month. But the good news is, Mike, we have plenty of Dragongate stuff to talk about tonight, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I have something planned for next week. There'll be something in the VoiceGate feed.
Fun. Okay, good. That's good to know.
Yeah. It's podcasting 101. Get something out every week now that the year started, So
absolutely.
So we'll get something out there. But yeah, we are primarily here not to talk about the weather and the greater Chicagoland transit issues. We're here to talk about Open the New Year Gate, Dragongate's first show from Tokyo, from Korakuen Hall on Sunday, the first time in company history that they had a Sunday morning, a local time. It ended up being Saturday evening, actually, for us in Central Time Zone for the first time ever. I wasn't able to catch it live, and I did the whole thing where I knew, just because of the kind of show it was, to completely mute myself and to get myself off of anything, because it's 8 to 10 p.m. our time here. But a huge success. The show itself, 1556 announced, tickets sold, easily the best show that they've had since, or their best tickets in that building since before COVID. So 6 years, that's the big high number here. And in a high number case, I would say, at least at a time that I don't think we were necessarily expecting that to be popped for that, which makes me believe that this was you found a good time slot, and it really worked out for them, and you put kind of your best foot forward in front of the people in that time slot.
I agree with that. I said it to Jay on Blue Sky. I was I really wish the company would do more of these. And as he pointed out to me, Korakuen Hall is booked 4 years in advance. So we will not be seeing these until the next Winter Olympics, if then. That was the way that I started to think about it. But it's a bummer because on the English-speaking side of things in North America, yeah, I mean, I think this show started at 8:30 p.m. Central. I mean, I wasn't home when this show started. I was kind of racing home to try to get home by the time the main event started, which I did. I basically saw MocchyFujii leave the ring, which I was delighted by what I saw then. And then I was on my couch with the network pulled up for the start of KZ versus Shimizu. So I timed it well for what it was, but compared to a Tuesday night, every once in a while we get lucky and we get a Friday night in Japan, Korakuen Hall. But for the most part, it's middle of the week wrestling. And I think we've seen companies like DDT in particular really benefit from these weekend slots. And you see here Dragongate, their first Korakuen of the year, a different time slot. And I think something that we're all recognizing now as a pretty hot angle going into, and more importantly, coming out of this show. It was a number of things that led to, the best non-stardom attendance in Korakuen Hall since the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think the time slot for a company that you used to be able to set the time on, usually the first or second Wednesday or Tuesday of the month, that's when the Korakuen happened, and that's what it's been basically for 26 years. And you do the afternoon thing, and I think you also... I would be interested in seeing them with this time slot in different places. I know with the way that it kind of works out whenever they do the Hakata double shot, and last week in Nagoya, you end up having a matinee and then the evening portion for that. But the idea of just the fan base changing so much over time, and it's not necessarily being a teenage and younger women churn here, in the reality of the family aspect of it. I think that you had a show that in a lot of ways you had something for everyone. You had Kohei Wada for grandpa showing up there with their kids for the outing. You got to have the next step and the Natural Vibes story, and especially as it relates to Shimizu, and then what is Natural Vibes coming out of the Shimizu series, and that kind of angle leading out of this. You have the big show main event decided for Uno Dos Tres Dragongate on the 23rd in Fukuoka, and you have your main event for the February 5th Korakuen that's just basically 2 weeks away. And I think that when we talk about Dragongate and Korakuen and how if we were to kind of pull the camera back case, instead of talking like individual shows or even like seasonally, like okay, this is how it was in fall, but if we talk about it and just like a 5 to 6 year context, what I felt like we got was not necessarily the show that had Skywalker versus Yamato and Mochizuki versus Mochizuki Jr. leading off the year, and you're just like, well, that's going to be a hard match for this company to do better in this building all year. Instead of what we had, I thought was a mix of really strong wrestling, but also the thing that they've kind of have found at times in Korakuen with the idea that essentially there was no intermission, so it was 2 hours and 45 minutes straight through, and you kind of had an aspect of them just going straight from like opening mic right into the first match, a little Gabe Sapolsky special almost in that kind of way. And instead what we got on Sunday, taken at whole, I think is one of their stronger overall performances in Korakuen from like an overall entertainment and top to bottom just manner over the last few years.
Yeah, I think when Dragongate is at their best, you can tell by the tone of their Korakuen Hall shows. And when they're at their best in Korakuen Hall, it feels like the best possible version of American television wrestling. You know, this sort of anything can happen, but we also adhere to a pretty strict structure type of environment. And we got that here. You know, we got great angles. We got advancement in great angles. I didn't have a match at 4 stars or higher, but I had a number of matches that I really loved on this show, which is the most important thing. And so by the end of it, yeah, it was a highly efficient show, if anything. And normally that might be a way to soften the blow on a bad show, is to say it's efficient. I know that I've written that many, many times over the years, but this was an efficient show in the highest complimentary sense possible. I don't know a lot of other promotions with the way that they're booked right now and the way that they're structured right now that could go into Korakuen Hall and accomplish what Dragongate did on this show.
Yeah, and I think just like also still kind of in a macro sense, I had one match at 4 stars flat. Everything else kind of fell within a band of everything being like 3 stars or better, essentially outside of one match that was not constructed to be that way. And that kind of sticks out when you have a match on the show like Doi and the part-timers versus Ultimo and the rookies, where you kind of get the best out of everyone you could have in that sort of context, you know? And when you're having that in the match that, okay, it's like whenever we preview the cards, we don't always comment like this is your go make a sandwich match or touch football match of the evening. We don't comment on that as much, but that match was going to be that. And instead, everyone, even from Punch Tominaga down to Iwashi, really kind of put their best foot forward for that kind of thing. And when you have that happen in the second night, in the second match, in the blow-off match on the show, and that's what you're getting from that kind of effort on the bottom end, and I think it just kind of kicks off and has everyone else from there on kind of go to a certain level. And I felt like that's kind of from there on in on this show, it was just off to the races and one of the more fun, complete shows that I've seen in 2026.
I would agree with that. I would agree with all that. I think that's well said.
So should we go the big angles in Shimizu first and just work our way back?
We'll go top down here. We'll end with Marcus Mathers.
So the main event of this show, and it was announced after Big Boss Shimizu's return in Kobe and joining Gaja Dokuro, was Big Boss Shimizu versus KZ in a singles match. Shimizu's first match back in Korakuen in 14 months, I think, actually, with the way that the kind of schedule and the suspension kind of hit for him. And you have a conclusion to the Shimizu versus former Natural Vibes teammates, which Shimizu, after a chair shot that basically disintegrated the chair and a power bomb, he hits 2 shot put slams. The first one he almost lost, and the second one he did it for emphasis. And after that, he puts down KZ to win a really strong match. Not my favorite match of the series that they had since his return, but I think given the crowd and given doing it in Cork, and KZ had to be the match here, and I felt like it hit all the marks you would want to kind of get this series, get the conclusion to Shimizu versus Natural Vibes, and at least this portion of it, and then move on to what is next for both groups and Shimizu and all of them together.
Yeah, I mean, this felt monstrous. This felt like one of the bigger Dragongate matches that we've had in some time, and it really starts to raise the question in terms of what do you do with Shimizu? We know that Dragongate is not the most linear booked promotion. I was talking about this with Fred Moreland on his podcast for the promotions primer episode that he has coming out by the end of January. We did about an hour and 15 minutes on Dragongate and their 2025 and what to look for in 2026. That was a really fun episode to record, so hopefully people hear that when it comes out. But, you know, Shimizu's in that spot where modern wrestling logic would tell you that he is the next man up and that this promotion is going to revolve around him for a little bit. But you also have a heel world champion that is in the same unit as Shimizu, but all signs are pointing to Shimizu at this point. I mean, I don't know, Mike, has Kakuta had a match that felt as hot as Shimizu versus KZ since he became Dreamgate champion?
I liked Kakuta versus Benkei, but but
that didn't have the emotional gravitas that this match had.
No, and nothing coming close to like the match against UT and Nagoya as well. You know, I mean, but just the overall program for the first 2 weeks of the calendar, that everything has been kind of revolving around Shimizu in such a kind of way. And you also have to deal with the fact that this is a guy that's coming off of a major suspension. And traditionally, when you look at how these promotions usually do with this, there's a time period of maybe not complete de-emphasis, but I mean, in the past, people that you could just say like, okay, they're back, we'll check back in on them in 2027 because that's when things will actually happen with them. Instead, Shimizu has been an absolute dynamo since returning, and if anything, he should play deeply into whatever the plans end up being towards the Dragon Coliseum or the Golden Coliseum show that's replacing Dead or Alive. And as we look further down into the spring, because I wonder how much you're going to be able to eat up Shimizu versus Kakuta, how much you can stall out on that when you have Shimizu side questing against Shun Skywalker next month. I feel like we'll see how many times they kind of do that, and then what the overall Dreamgate situation is coming out of Fukuoka on the 23rd, because it very easily to me seems like that a Golden Coliseum Dreamgate match very well should and could be Yuki Yoshioka defending against Big R Shimizu, at least with how things are feeling on the 20th of January.
So I don't want to jump too far ahead because there's a lot that I want to say about Shimizu versus KZ as a match, but we're in this ballpark, so let's stay in this ballpark for just a second. I almost hesitate to say this because I doubt it will come to fruition, and I don't want to consume this promotion through the lens of what I would have done in this situation is blank. But
yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
Isn't the most exciting and entertaining option possible that Yoshioka pins Kakuta on February 23rd in Fukuoka at Uno Dos Tres, and 1 week later in Osaka, Big Boss Shimizu beats Yoshioka for the Dreamgate belt? Is that not the most entertaining scenario possible?
Yeah, because then the whole entire tenor goes, okay, who can stop this guy and who is going to be the person to try to take him out on his shield at Kobe World? Like that becomes a completely different kind of story than what's being told about Kakuta as champion.
You know, one of the things that I was talking about with Fred, it's funny that this is coming up now because he was asking me, as somebody who, you know, he really only had one eye on Dragongate in 2025, and he was asking me, he goes, you know, it feels like ever since Shun lost the Dreamgate belt that he's been sort of an afterthought, and shouldn't the story of this promotion be Shun trying to get his revenge? And I told him, I go, Fred, you know, the story of this promotion right now is not Shun getting his revenge on Kakuta. It's Yoshioka getting his revenge on Kakuta. That's the story that comes first, and they can pay that off almost like the first time, and it's a little bit different because Yoshioka's already been Dreamgate champion, but it's a situation that reminds me a little bit of the first time that Naito won the IWGP heavyweight title, and he won it in April at what I think was still Invasion Attack, and he had the one defense against Ishii, and everybody thought like, oh my God, this is going to be, you know, everything that Okada has gotten and that Tanahashi had before Okada, this is going to be Naito's time with that title. And then instead, Okada beat him over the summer. A lot of really rational people handled that situation really rationally and really normally, as Tetsuya Naito fans always do. And then we had this 4-year arc to Naito eventually getting the win at Wrestle Kingdom, and then the pandemic sort of changed whatever those plans were going to be. But this feels like one of those deals where you can put a cap on Yoshioka versus Kakuta in the way that it should, in the most satisfying way possible, with Yoshioka beating Kakuta. And then the only reason that I would do it a week later is it's in Osaka a week later for what was normally Champion Gate. I don't know if it's going to be Champion Gate this year. They haven't announced a Nostalgia Gate or anything, so I don't know what the plans are there.
I think they only have one date there.
No, they have two. I thought they only had one also, but there's two. It's February 28th and March 1st.
Yeah, it's got that wraparound.
Yeah, I did the same thing until I was looking at it yesterday. But, the only reason I wouldn't wait until that Nagoya show at the end of April is because Shimizu is from Osaka, and he has now a pretty rich history of Dreamgate matches there, with the Kai match in 2022 and the Kakuta match in 2023 in the bigger building. But to me, that's like, all right, that's great. You get Yoshioka to get his win back. You put Yoshioka back on that 1A level, which he's been fighting for 11 months now since his return from injury, trying to get back to that level and trying to get people to see that he's back at that level, which I think are two separate things. And I think him winning the Dreamgate belt would accomplish that. But you're also in this gift-wrapped scenario where you have the perfect short-term stopper for Yoshioka once again. It was Kakuta with Yoshioka coming off the injury last year, and now it's Shimizu possibly coming off of a Dreamgate win this year. And if I'm Dragongate, even if I like what's coming down the pipeline with Junior and Kimura and an eventual Kato face turn and whatever they think they have with ISHIN and who knows what with El Cielo. I don't think you and I are necessarily worried about their 5-year plan. But if you have the option of savoring the Yoshioka run and putting Shimizu in the Dreamgate spot for a little bit, maybe Shun back in the Dreamgate spot for a little bit, maybe somebody who's never won the title before in a Dreamgate spot for a little bit, wouldn't you want to hold off on the Yoshioka stuff for as long as you possibly can? And there's a fine line between waiting as long as you can and pulling a Tyler Black and Ring of Honor scenario. And you're always going to run the risk of that. And I think with somebody specifically like Yoshioka, you're really going to run the risk with that. But I think that's a risk worth taking. And to me, the most interesting thing possible right now, given the work that he's done, and given the work that I assume he'll do against Skywalker here the first week of February, is Yoshioka over Kakuta in February, Shimizu over Yoshioka the first week of March.
Yeah, I like the way you kind of laid it down here. And I think like the Yoshioka doesn't need a long run. He needs to have just gotten back to the mountaintop here. And
I think it's one of those things that, and maybe you won't feel this way, but I feel like it's just human nature. It's not fair to him. But when Yoshioka eventually wins that Dreamgate title again, he had such a great reign in 2022, at least to people that have a clue like you and I. We think that's one of the upper tier Dreamgate runs in the history of the company. I'm going to be comparing everything he does in his second reign to his first reign. And it's why I think it like, I don't know if Yoshioka heading into World as Dreamgate champion this year is that good of an idea, because I also, I'm really battling my thoughts on Yoshioka right now, because I think he's largely been very, very good since about November, but he's still not what he once was. And I think a short reign would do him a lot of good this time around.
Yeah, and I feel like at least as it kind of relates to him, it's you say he's the ace, and you're like, please be the ace, please be the ace. He has to kind of capture the championship here at like the first defense, and not end up being a situation where people who are just parachuting and just go like, oh, he's an Umino, when that's just not the kind of discourse with him. And I think really with Kakuta, and especially since like I haven't talked to anyone, but it sure seems like that we're about to get a Gaja Dokuro produce coming up, that it's not going to be like a hit for him to lose the belt here. And I think if anything, looking at the kind of scenario here, because like going back to Yoshioka for a second, I think one of the smart things that they've done with Shun is like, okay, he had that one like legendary level run, and then they kept it kind of short, because if you kept it kind of short, then you don't have people battling the battling ghosts essentially. And I think that doing a short Yoshioka run does a lot to kind of maybe not maybe not fight all the ghosts, but I think at least for the way that he's presented, and maybe I just kind of in general for Yoshioka, it's a thing where, well, when the lights have been on, he's been very, very good. And I think that that there is like that extra level that I still think is there from him, that we will find out on February 23rd to see that level in his tank is still there. I mean, that's a real prove me kind of match for him in a lot of ways.
You know, just to compare him to Shun for a second, you're right. So the first Shun Dreamgate run is the end of 2020 through the summer of 2021. And that's the Benkei match. That's the ill-fated Kakuta match. But it's also Ishida and Sakamoto and Yamato and KZ. And I think there might even be one more that I'm forgetting in there that was really, really good. But, that was 5 years ago, when he's had 2 Dreamgate reigns since. One where he had one successful defense against Strong Machine J, and then he lost it to Kakuta, and that was perfect booking. I mean, I don't know. I still think that whole arc of Yoshioka losing to Shun, who then elevated Strong Machine J, who then lost it to Kakuta in the perfect way, that 5-month Dreamgate arc, and really if you want to extend it to, about 10 months, with the Yoshioka Dreamgate run leading all up to it, I thought that was all perfectly executed. Wouldn't have changed a thing about that. But it was a 1 defense reign for Shun. And then you have this past summer where he wins it. He ends Yamato's reign. I'm still not sure if that was the right decision or not. It might have been better to just go straight from Yamato to Kakuta. But nevertheless, you now have this 3rd Skywalker reign that has 0 successful defenses. So taking off my critical lens for a moment and just thinking as a fan, I'll try to enter the Tetsuya Naito fan base mind for just a second. Please pull me back to reality if I go too far deep. But
if you start having like main event entrances, that's when I'll yank you back.
Well, they didn't do the fist bump. All right, I don't give a fuck. But Shun as a fan, is my favorite wrestler. I have this internal like, oh man, he's kind of been wrong, 2 really short Dreamgate reigns. So the next time that he wins the Dreamgate belt, and there will be a next time, that's when I'm expecting, okay, super mega babyface Shun Skywalker Dreamgate run. Give it to me now. That's what I want. Let this guy cook with the title for months and months and months. And I think they can do a very, very similar thing with Yoshioka here, where, in a way, like between Shun and Yoshioka and Ben, they're all kind of in this spot where you can model what Yamato just did with the Dreamgate belt, and you can go, okay, we should be preparing for these 3 guys, this 3-headed dragon. At some point in their career, they should all try to have the same Dreamgate run that Yamato had in 2024 and 2025. But with the way this promotion's built right now, with the way the roster is shaking out, none of them need to have it right now. 6 months from now,
and it lets you do interesting things.
Yes, exactly. Now 6 months from now, as we head into World and we're dicking around with Shimizu and we don't know how that is, we might want to go, okay, all right, a little stability at the top of the card would do some good. Benkei, you're back in the Kobe World main event. Congratulations, it's your 3rd time. This time, instead of losing the Dreamgate belt to Yamato, you're going to win the Dreamgate belt from Shimizu. That might be the course correction that we need 6 months from now. But as we both sit here, I would say uberly optimistic about the Shimizu character and pretty bullish on at least the top end of the roster. I think we can sit here and play with house money and go, at some point, Shun, Yoshioka, and Ben should all have 12-month-long Dreamgate runs, but we're not in a break glass in case of emergency spot for any of those guys right now.
Yeah, and at least with the interest of 1,500 people at a Dragongate show in this building for the first time in 6 years, and seeing like that kind of what you can do with that sort of balance. Like there's no reasonable expectation to think that attendance is going to be replicated on the 5th. It's just this was kind of a Goldilocks scenario, at least the way I kind of look at it. But Shimizu has now become such a figure kind of on these shows that, like, isn't there like a little bit of he wins it then in Osaka? 2 days later, they have another March. They have a March 3rd Korakuen, and it's like, okay, this guy, at least in this building, you very quickly could have him feel like the absolute dude because he takes out KZ, a favorite of the building. Like, KZ only has important matches in Korakuen in the post-COVID era, and then now he's going to have Shun Skywalker in Shun Skywalker's return match. There's a part of me that's going, oh my God, this guy could absolutely have all of the momentum possible just going into Uno Dos Tres, where he's not going to be in the main event because it's already been booked, and he's just lurking, and that's instantly the most compelling story of 2026 to me is, what do you do next with Shimizu? Like, going into like the rest of this month or into February, into this month where there's a lot more spaced out TV. So it feels like that there is something here, and it feels like that the kind of hesitation that we would have been conditioned to expect for someone being put back into this scenario, there is no limiter. There's no restrictor plate on Shimizu, and why not see where you can go with this, which is something that even at the peak of Who Can Stop the Shimizu in 2023, I don't think that we were like, oh no, let's just put house money, let's put it all on Shimizu at this point. And it really does kind of feel like this, especially in a match against KZ, where KZ just being like one of the most giving guys in the business, given how much essentially he was just dismantled all the way through it and just trying to escape out of shot put slams until eventually he's beat down so much that he's practically dead bodied onto 2 of them. It was a really fun singles match main event here, and it felt completely deserved, and I'm all in on Shimizu. I want to see where it can go.
It was an excellent Shimizu performance. It was a really excellent KZ performance, and this is where, you know, you just have this tremendous paradox with him, because he has entered that. I always compare him to TJP, where it's like, wow, there are times where I watch him wrestle and I go, he might be the most technically proficient wrestler there is. I mean, KZ does stuff at such a high level that I see so few other wrestlers able to do. And you might go, okay, well, that should be, you know, between just the technical proficiency, the crowd connection, the longevity that he's had now as a semi-top guy, you would go, okay, at some point he's going to hold the Dreamgate belt. But I kind of think there's just an inherent charm to KZ never being that guy. And I kind of don't want him to ever be that guy. There's something tragic about watching Big Boss Shimizu gone for a year, all the baggage that he carried with him for all of those years, to watch him come into Korakuen Hall and just steamroll this pillar of consistency on the roster. It was an incredible visual display. You know, KZ is one of the best wrestlers in the world at getting his ass kicked. And he's also one of the best wrestlers in the world at showing fire and passion and hunger and heart. And we got both sides of that in this match. And the hope spots were brilliantly timed. The comebacks were brilliantly timed. The way that Shimizu was able to cut him off was excellent. All of this worked so well.
Working the count out after you had the count out be such a factor in the match previous to it, it's such like genius reflexive kind of mat work to go, okay, so that last match it was intentionally done in a rule set that we do not do, and we worked the match around it. Then the big thing about that match being like 10 count on the floor, Shimizu power bombs KZ on the floor in the opening minutes of the match, and it's a perfectly worked count out tease because you already have everyone like really keyed in on the count out, and you have something that like murderous and that worked. I thought that was one of the smartest things done on the entire show, just working that.
It's been so interesting to see with the giant transformation that he's made. And I complained about this with Kakuta last week, but Shimizu seems to know who he is as a wrestler right now. And one of my big hangups on Kakuta is that really ever since he won the title, I can't tell if he is supposed to be an in-your-face jock heel or if he's this kind of mysterious creature. Like the character of Madoka Kakuta at this point, I'm very confused on. And I've had a really hard time emotionally investing in his Dreamgate reign, even if the matches themselves in a vacuum between the Bin match and the Susumu match in particular have been great. Not really good, but they've been great. But Shimizu, you're right. Like there's a believability to him in the same way that at the absolute peak of his powers, because I think Shimizu was a better wrestler and has had a higher peak and has had a longer, prime. But the very best 0.01% of magnitude Kishiwada, Shimizu is embodying a lot of that right now. But then there's also, it's funny that Jay compared Shimizu's body to this guy's body, but Shimizu has this sort of bite and viciousness that someone like Pac carries to the ring with him as well. And I know who this guy is when he's in the ring, and I think they've done such a marvelous job of not only reestablishing the shot put slam, but establishing these counters to the shot put slam, and the fact that, if he hits it, it's death, but you can turn it into a DDT. You can turn it into a Hurricane Rana. You can slip out of it. There's all of these great things that are happening with Shimizu's finishing stretches right now. And it's why I think he's immediately overtaken the top spot for the most entertaining wrestler in the company. With all due respect to ISHIN and Tanaka and Shun and, down there somewhere is Kakuta, Shimizu just understands who he is right now.
Yeah, and I think when you have the two of them kind of play off of that, that's where you kind of get a level of magic. I personally still hold the UT match a little bit higher. I was only 3 3/4.
Oh, I do as well. I have the UT match at 4.5 stars. I think that's the best thing I've seen this year that wasn't Okada Tanahashi.
Case, I know your review is already up on Voices of Wrestling. You kind of largely felt the same about it. It was, especially like if you treat it like a show main event. I think that's like one of the things that in 2026 I'm kind of embracing more, at least as like a re-gearing my mindset, is thinking about each of these shows as like a complete individual event here. And for like thinking about like next time on Dragongate, and that kind of thing, the way that you had this, and we haven't even touched in the post-match angle yet so far on the show so far, but like it was like the exact kind of thing that you want to do to kick off your year. And now already I know February 5th, next time we're in this building, it's going to be, we have the next thing for Shun, for Big Boss Shimizu, because Shimizu got the microphone afterwards, ran down basically all of Natural Vibes, and then was basically saying, I should be the main character of this company at this point. Jay on commentary doing the translation of it. And that brought out Shun Skywalker face to face to the guy that took him out in Kobe a couple of weeks back. Full tear down brawl between Gaja Dokuro and Saipatra with Natural Vibes just still recovering / in the wreckage of all of this. And we have a main event for the February 5th Korakuen on a Tuesday, Shun Skywalker versus Big Boss Shimizu.
And before that, we also have Memorial Gate making TV just a few days before that Korakuen. And I only mention that because I don't know how you feel, but as we now approach the end of January and we don't have any TV left for this month, I feel like every Shimizu match, until otherwise noted, is must-see TV. I'm trying to get everybody I can to go through the arc of the multi-man match where he turned, into the multi-man match at the first Nagoya show, into UT, into Strong Machine J, into KZ, into this post-match angle, because it all feels so episodic and it all has been excellent. And now, like, coming out of this show, I'm really bummed that we aren't getting another TV this week, because I want to see Mathers and I want to see more Love and Peace, and I really want to see what Shimizu does next. And I'm bummed that I have to wait as long as I do for Memorial Gate and then for that.
Yeah, that was the last network show for the for the remainder of the month. So like we are basically having to sit on it for 11 days until Memorial Gate. No card is out for that right now, but boy, the main event. So Shun is going to be back as of this week because
yes, he's working the house shows. He's got his homecoming show this week.
That's what I was about to say, because boy, get Junior to get out the iPhone, because I want to see Sai Patra, Shun Skywalker, Hamare, and El Cielo versus Big Boss Shimizu, Kota Minoura, and Jason Alei. Like, that just sounds amazing right now. And just because of how the schedule is a little bit set up right now, we're probably not going to see that, and that kind of stinks.
After the holidays, there's so much to clean up and get ready for the coming year. This leaves me exhausted and a lot of things falling off my to-do list. It's time to lock in, and Omaha Steaks delivers everything you crave to reset after the holidays. An order from them means having high-quality Omaha steaks on hand at all times. I'm a big meat lover myself, and I always go with medium rare. But there's also plenty of poultry and other options available. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. A family-owned company with over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry. Let Omaha Steaks deliver high-quality proteins right to your door. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their end-of-season sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code YUM at checkout. That's OMAHA steaks.com, promo code YUM. Terms apply. See site for details. Go to www.omahasteaks.com to get 50% off site-wide during their end-of-season sale. And use promo code YUM at checkout for an extra $35 off. Minimum purchase may apply. Thanks to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us.
I agree. I'm bummed. I would really like to see some of these house shows, and I'm just, like I said, until otherwise noted, I think the Shimizu stuff is must watch. And I think as we now have consumed roughly a month of wrestling this year, you know, I'm a little bit behind on New Japan, and I'm incredibly curious as to how New Japan has become a tag team promotion all of a sudden. And so I've got to watch some of that stuff. But
it's a tag team promotion, but only for the heavies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, look, if New Japan was a junior tag promotion, it would be number one on my list. But you know, they haven't been that in a decade now. Not since the days where people would complain about, oh, we're getting Young Bucks versus Roppongi Vice again. Oh, you mean we're getting a 4-star match to open up a pay-per-view? Cool. Give me that every month. That was always the worst complaint of that area was, oh, Bucks and Red Dragon again. Oh, you mean a match that is guaranteed to be great every month? Oh, no.
And then they would get more mad when it became a 3-way. It's like, oh no, that's what you want to do in this scenario.
It's like, the teams that are the teams that are wrestling, and there's not many of them that are perfectly capable of going great. A 3-way tag, awesome. Sign us up for it. Can't wait. Yeah,
no, we can't have that
stuff. Oh god, Bucks and O'Reilly and Fish, and you know the tail end of the Time Splitters there, and then I was at the second Ring of Honor show, the second appearance of Roppongi Vice. When Beretta and Rocky started teaming, they teamed together for the first time in Milwaukee, and then the second night in Chicago Ridge. I think they either wrestled Red Dragon or the Bucks on that show. I think it was Red Dragon, because I think the main event of that show, this is 2015 Ring of Honor. I apologize for going down memory lane. I believe the main event of the show that I was at was the Bucks versus Future Shock. No, that can't be right. Not going to look it up. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I saw a very early Roppongi Vice match, and I was like, these guys are awesome. I need to see more of this. And then we got plenty of it, and it was great. And then Roppongi 3K came into the mix, and all of those matches were great. And then, as I said in 2019, the Bucks went heavyweight, and I thought that was one of the most unheralded / most interesting stories in all of wrestling, was the Bucks finally becoming heavyweight tag guys in New Japan. And then they left, and we got AEW, and here we are sitting here today 7 years later. But nevertheless, I say all of this because I think Shimizu has maybe not been the best wrestler in the world, although I think he certainly belongs in that conversation for the first month of the year, but he's certainly been the most interesting. You know, I think Sakamoto's been great. Mystico is Mystico. He's been great. Bandito's had a great year, but I don't really think anybody's doing what Shimizu's doing right now.
Yeah, and it's just, we'll see how February kind of plays out here, and how Shimizu is able to keep this up here, and see how he might be that one lurking in the shadows for whoever comes out of Fukuoka. But we left natural vibes in the ring after Gaja Dokuro and Sai Patra had their pull apart, and GM Ryo Saito made Shimizu versus Skywalker. And as everyone kind of expected, it was a looming, well, shit. KZ going, well, we've been around for 8 years, give or take at this point, and basically doing all of the things to heavily tip that they were going to disband. But then Party Anthem hits, and Daiki Yanagiuchi comes out and says, like, hey, I want to be the miracle that brings Natural Vibes back together. And of course, we have the great thing of Daiki Yanagiuchi wrestling in match 2, going and getting his hair bleached in the meantime between that and this match. And Natural Vibe seems bemused, decide, okay, well, the test is you have to be able to dance. And Daiki says, well, that's what I was training all break for. They do Party Anthem, and right before they break down into the actual dance number, a mysterious red dreadlocked man stepped into the ring. No case, it wasn't Trench from Mogul Associates. It was Akihiro Sahara, or now known as Aki, in a Amazon bought Good Vibes Only hoodie, red dreadlock wig, doing the dance. And they have announced that they are joining Natural Vibes. Chapter 5 of Natural Vibes will officially start on February 5th. Daiki and Aki have somehow managed to get the 3 senior members of Natural Vibes immediately on board, and we're off to the races with the 5th generation of Natural Vibes to close out the show.
I worry that if the wokes catch wind of what Akihiro Sahara was wearing, that we might have some issues. I don't know if the wig that he had on was cancelable or not.
I mean, everyone thought he was Yashi initially.
I thought it was like a fan at first. I really wasn't sure what was happening.
Yeah. And of course, like the fact that like he shows up and he's wearing basketball shorts and a hoodie with this, and this being like the show that's revealed that actually one of the reasons that Sahara has not been around as much is that he's finishing up his college degree. And this was probably not the case when you were in undergrad, but there was definitely a stereotype of white guy dreads when I was in college.
No, I went to what is considered to be one of the more far left-leaning colleges in the country, and let me tell you, in 2017 when I was in college, white guys with dreads was not something that was gonna fly. You would be quickly hit with the cultural appropriation handcuffs in a swift and just way. I know the stereotype, I understand it. Boy, was that not flying at my school.
Yeah, but he is now.
It's such a funny thought, actually.
You know who he looks just like, and not to get us on another side rail when I refer to the canon of Comedy Central, he looks like Jon Favreau out of PCU.
Ah, yes. A movie that I have not seen, but I know that my close personal friend Jeremy Piven is in that movie. I met Jeremy Piven this past year. What a bizarre guy he is. Just like he's everything you would think Jeremy Piven would be. Yeah.
Doing the radio thing because he came down in DFW and did the same thing, appearing on like the shows I listen to, and it's like,
he was so easy to book. We did a phoner with him, and we were like, hey, that was awesome. Do you want to come in? He's like, yeah, I do actually. And he's an interesting guy because I think he really likes being famous and being known, but I do think he hates being known as guy from Entourage because his family is an integral part of an integral part of Chicago theater history. And are like very serious actors. And he joked with us. He's like, the thing I did after Entourage was just show on PBS. Like in that, like the PBS show really mattered to me. It was like a very serious undertaking of mine, but everybody knows him as Ari. And I think he just lives with that confliction within him. He was a weirdo, but he was a very nice guy. He was a very interesting guy to spend an afternoon with.
Yeah. And he's just doing stand-up now.
He's just doing stand-up, doing his thing. He filmed I don't think it's out yet, but whatever his next special is, he filmed in Chicago the day that we interviewed him. So that'll be out there at some point. I don't think anybody's going to rush to their streaming service of choice to check that out. But yeah, we have new Natural Vibes members. I mean, I think I can speak for you on this. This felt like one of those. First of all, this whole entire thing, from the start of Shimizu versus KZ to the end of the Natural Vibes angle, it felt like vintage Toryumon in the best way possible. It almost felt like they've been chasing this sort of thing for a few years now, and they really stuck the landing. You know, this is the type of thing, I think this show specifically talks a lot about it, about how hard it is in modern culture and the consumption era to canonize wrestling and to have things that are now considered to be all-time great moments, because not only in the way we talk about things, every day there's an all-time great moment, which is obviously hyperbolic, but that's the way people speak, but every day there's something new to watch. You know, this show happened 2 days ago, and I already have another 4 or 5 Japanese wrestling shows that I have to watch from other promotions. It just never ends. There's always a pile of stuff. If this same match and angle happened in 2003, 2005, 2011, 2015, Mike, it's something that's talked about the entire year. It's something that's revered. It's something that's celebrated. It's something that makes people go, only Toryumon or only Dragongate can do something like this. We were witnessing in the flesh, in the moment, in real time, an all-time great angle from this company. The only difference is that I don't think it will be remembered that way, because we're not allowed to remember stuff like that anymore with the amount of consuming that we have to do.
Yeah, and it's a shame about just like how now this is just not going to have that level of resonance, because especially for like two guys coming into this unit like desperately at a point where like Daiki's coming up on his 30-year anniversary. Sahara's going to be full time after March, and this is what he's wanting to do here. This is the right step, like, and especially like having them in this kind of memorable angle after having Daiki, one of his better performances in his career, in that match too. In that Daiki winning clean with a move, no flash pin, no count out, just Daiki winning. And the next step being like the revitalization for Natural Vibes, who has been that position that has taken people like Jackie Kamei and UT, and has either for people like Jackie Kamei get him to the point where he's able to now go out and be one of the 10 best wrestlers on the planet on any given day and be like a credentialed dude in all the senses of the word. A lot of that came from the year and a half in Natural Vibes getting him to kind of this position. So for someone like Daiki, that's exactly what's needed here. For Aki, I think that you look at him, and it's the one thing that's kind of tough for him, I feel like, is that the one person that had his body type and kind of went through things of a career a lot like him was the guy who has come back, dropped 40 pounds, and now like is the most interesting man on the planet. Like the Shimizu was kind of the person that you would look to for like, okay, Aki's kind of progression, and now the thing is that he kind of steps into what could be a Shimizu like role in Natural Vibes, and the excitement of, okay, what's going to happen when you get like Aki teaming with UT now, and how's that going to look on the house shows now, and how's that going to look like on the house shows after Kobe World. I think this is like the best thing for the two of them. As someone who Natural Vibes, I go hot and cold on at any given time. Usually now it's more hot when Flamita's around, like you, that this is the kind of thing that you have that Toryumon moment, and you also have like the perfect situation for the guys stepping into that moment. And I think that's another reason why this feels like such a home run.
I'm completely there with you. It also, you know, it lets you hit the ground running now with some fresh vibes versus Gaja Dokuro matches. I was going to say I would imagine they do something like that at Memorial Gate, but you could also, I bet what they do at Memorial Gate, I bet they headline with like Shimizu, Jason, and Minoura versus KZJ and UT versus Shun, Hamare, and Cielo. It feels like they're gonna want to intersplice all of those teams together.
Yeah,
there's
no title matches really available.
Yeah,
so that makes sense. Yeah.
Boy, would I love to see Tanaka versus Alejandro on that show, but we'll get to that. So I feel like that's the move they're going to make there. You know, for Daiki, this is the natural, no pun intended, but the natural move here. I'm all for it. I think it fits his character. I think this is who he is. I'm very curious to see if he has a Hyo-like run as a heel in him at some point in his career. That's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. But
He's
this
got dark
makes sense for
energy.
him.
He has to be heel sometime.
He absolutely has dark energy, and I'm very curious to see when they will lean into that. For Sahara, this is the right move. You made the Shimizu comparison. The other comp I'll make, and it's not necessarily that I'm worried that he would go down this path, but I do think him being in Vibes and theoretically succeeding in this unit will fully prevent this from happening. But because he's a guy with the background that he has, with a more traditional Japanese wrestling approach, let's say, than the average Dragongate trainee, you can't have him fall into the traps that Keisuke Ikuda fell into of he has one mode, he has one speed, he can't play within the lines of Dragongate, he has to play within the lines of Ikuda. That is a death sentence for anybody that wants to be taken seriously in this promotion. So if you're somebody that is looking at Sahara and wanting this strong Big Japan Sekimoto Okabayashi type career out of him, I still think that's in play. I still think he can eventually be somebody like a Big Boss Shimizu before the weight loss, where he can be this credible upper mid-card guy who uses his size as a weapon and is a really interesting, for lack of a better term, tower on the roster. But to succeed in Dragongate, you have to be able to do this, at least for a little bit. He has to be able to do Vibes before he can do the thing that we all want to see him do. And so I think this is a really smart move on their part.
Yeah, and it'll be a whole lot of fun to see them kind of develop in this kind of space and see people like KZ, UT, and Strong Machine J starting to team with them. And I mean, this to me, like after the initial rookie phase, the next thing of interest for me usually is when they get it put into real roster kind of roles, and seeing this at this time for those two guys is going to be a lot fun to see. So that was the main event and the show closing angle of the Cork, and the semi-main event of the show was the first defense of the All Asia Tag Team titles from All Japan, with referee Kohei Wada being the PWF designated official. The champion team of Ishin and Yoshiki Kato defending against the long time and now combined age of 111 Masaki Mochizuki and Don Fuji. MocchyFujii get it done. Don Fuji gets a flash pin, a inside cradle after a deep Gato clutch near fall, getting the inside cradle out of a Jinchu attempt here. I thought this was absolutely just was a blast, really. Like, I was 4 flat on it, Case. I just for what it was and how it was work, it just kind of scratched that itch for me in that kind of way. And this is also a good time to note that as of the time that we're reporting right now, Case, happy 32nd wrestling anniversary to Masaki Mochizuki. His first wrestling match was on January 21st, 1994, of course, against Taz. But that's today, right now, Case.
Happy anniversary, Masaki Mochizuki. This match made me so happy. It was such an enjoyable thing to see from start to finish. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what we were going to get. I talked last week about how I wasn't sure what Don Fuji's level of output was going to be, and that quite honestly, this match was going to hinge on whether or not Masaki Mochizuki could carry the weight of this entire match with Ishin and with Kato. And every once in a while, there's 2 things I was really wrong about last week, which is okay, because I fully, in this job, sometimes you just got to be wrong. That's a big Ryan Russillo take doing sports radio, is he's like, sometimes you just got to be wrong about something every once in a while. You got to be way off base. And there happen to be 2 things I was way off base on when it comes to this show. One of which is that I wasn't expecting this level of output from Fuji. And there are 2 things that I wrote in my review that I'll just briefly touch on here. Thank you to the kind words from everybody for this most recent written review. I was very happy with the way that it turned out. I very rarely do I like my writing, but I really like my writing for this review. One of which, Mike, is that Don Fuji reminded me that young wrestlers apparently have no idea how to stand on an apron in a tag match, because Don Fuji hurling that ice pack towards Ishin's head in delivering a strike to his shoulder blades. Why? I mean, why don't more people do this? Like, when I think back to all of those Tenru tags in Noah in 2005, and just how matches historically, they're just elevated so much by guy throws a water bottle, guy throws an ice pack, guys are chirping at each other on the apron. And that is just such a lost art right now. And I don't understand why that is. Why are more wrestlers not doing what Don Fuji did in this match when they're standing on the apron?
Oh, and just like this was a little things match because you had them just expertly work this audience with the PWF rules. You have ISHIN doing his safe bit and it burning him with WADA, and that was perfect for this. And the match, like after Fuji wings it, the match becomes, oh wait, these two guys are. We always make jokes about Don Fuji has had a bad knee for 25 years. What happens if two monsters decide then, okay, let's see how bad it actually is, and ripping his tights so they can get straight at the knee, doing devastating stump pullers. Like, this is a little thing match where after doing two double stump pullers, I was wincing for Don Fuji, and it's just the little things that don't happen in pro wrestling anymore. This is as Saguna Keita coded of a Dragongate match as one will ever be.
Well, I think what was great about it was it felt true to an All Asia tag match. You know, this is the type of thing that I would want to see from these titles. And the other thing that I wrote in my review that I wanted to hit on, and you know, it does result in a side swipe, but I stand by everything I said. Don Fuji's performance in this match to me was everything that Eddie Kingston always tries to be. And I've been I don't know if outspoken is the right word, but I've been one of Kingston's harshest critics for the better part of a decade now, going back to his run on top in AEW. And I remember talking with you in 2022 during his AEW feud with Punk, where the public perception really favored Eddie Kingston. And I remember joking with you, I was like, I don't understand why Punk's a babyface in this scenario. Everything he's saying about Eddie Kingston is right. This guy's kind of a fat, out of shape loser. And I've always found Kingston at his worst. That's not to say that he isn't capable of having great matches, but I oftentimes find Kingston to be a complete and total tryhard who comes across inauthentic in his approach for authenticity. And Don Fuji was just doing the real thing. He was just brilliant in the way that he was selling, and the way that he was trying to steal this victory, and the cranky old man approach that he brought to this tag match. I bought into this as a fully authentic Don Fuji performance, and I came away from this in the same way. And I know this is such a weird comp to make, but when I go back and I watch old AAA, you know, 93, 94 AAA, I watch Perro Aguayo, and it makes me dislike Ric Flair, or at least like Flair less, because Flair never figured out the old man charisma in the way that Perro did. I watch a match like this and I go, yeah, like, this is who Eddie Kingston thinks he is, but Kingston is just a cheap copy of this.
Yeah, and just the way that working it in that All Asia, and the way that, like, for two absolute nerds of pro wrestling and Don Fuji, Masaki Mochizuki, to basically be able to go out there with Kohei Wada and have a match that would not look out of place during a real world tag league in the 70s. Just it was just adorable in its kind of way. And yeah, just like the reaction, the way that Fuji was able to kind of scrape through with it, and clearly with a Gacha Dokuro that makes their presence felt as much as possible on the shows, and having like a win for the baby faces over this heel unit felt so incredibly deserved. And Ishin just going for it every step of the way throughout the match, being the perfect foil for Fuji and Mochizuki at various points. After the match, who would be there, Case, but our favorite celebrity, Seiji Miyane, and they pull him into the ring so that Mochi and Fuji can hang out with their celebrity and Kohei Wada. A good time was had by all in the semi-main event.
Absolutely fantastic stuff.
Match 5 was the original pairing of D-Courage, Yuki Yoshioka, and Dragon Dia versus Gaja Dokuros, Madoka Kakuta, and Kai. A out-and-out tag match ending with Daya being able to isolate Kakuta on the outside, opening up Kai for the high fly flow on him for the win for D-Courage and Yoshioka. Yoshioka does the challenge. Kakuta is unhappy about it, but as we all know, that match is made. It is the main event of Unos Dos Tres Dragongate Festival in Fukuoka on the 23rd of February. But a fun match, I thought. I really enjoyed this tag match for what they were trying to do for it. And Daya might be one of the best babyface in peril working today. Like, he was incredible, just taking an ass kicking as Yoshioka was selling the brawl on the outside.
I seem to be the low man on this. This match did not grab me whatsoever. And coming out of Kobe, Nagoya, Osaka, where in the closing stretches of these matches, I thought Yoshioka and Kakuta may have finally unlocked something as opponents, because I'm just not sure these guys have very good chemistry with one another. I thought everybody took a step backwards here. I don't know. I worry about this match in Fukuoka. I could just see this being not a dud in the rating sense, but just a dud from the lack of impact. I have very little confidence that they are going to go out and crush it. And I want that for them, and I want Yoshioka to win and to get that second Dreamgate run off on the right foot. I think that'd be great for the company, but I'm not into these guys together. I do not think they bring out the best in one another.
Yeah, and that just makes it a title match where you can't have confidence in the output in it. And I know that as the one who's a little bit higher on Kakuta's run than you are, you would think I would go in with that kind of confidence for them. But I mean, their interaction on the house shows or on the loop were better than this one. They kind of making it into Yoshioka versus Kai and not getting another direct pin over the champion did kind of go like, oh, are we half doing this? Or, oh, wait, Yuki actually is doing the challenge just straight up at this point. Okay, I didn't know if we were going to do a refresher pin and do it that way. So I totally get the apprehension here. And I think the big thing over the next few weeks is that you have essentially 6 weeks to get there. You have a good amount of television throughout the month of February. And I would hope for Memorial Gate. I know that you were thinking that we would get that three-way six-man up top, but that should allow some sort of Yoshioka, Daya, Tanaka, Mathers versus the remainders of Gaja Dokuro pretty easily, I would think.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Mathers there, because I was thinking there's a Kobe Art Center show in February, and I kind of have that circled as the like, oh, I wonder if Mathers is working at the top of the card in an Atomicos match on that show. I wonder if he's at that level by the time we get there. I'm fascinated to see what they do with these guys at that February Korakuen show, because I think you and I would both assume, given the results of this show, that Shimizu versus Shun is headlining. So it's amazing. It's really amazing how this has come full circle, because in 2023, when these guys wrestled at Kobe World, they weren't the hottest match on the show. It was the cage match that not only had to be the main event because it was the cage match, but the cage match with Shun and Monte and the Ultimo inclusion and the Dragon Kid part of it, and the fact that it seemed like Strong Machine J, it was between Monte and Strong Machine J really as to who was going to lose their mask. That was a really strong build and a match that felt really hot. And Yoshioka and Kakuta were the leftover Dreamgate match. And we're going to go through the same scenario again, where now Shimizu is eating the lunch of Kakuta as the Dreamgate champion, and we might have a second really cold Dreamgate match between these two guys.
Yeah, I didn't think about it in that context, but
because they're going to have to do something. Yeah. I mean, look, I was wrestling with this idea after the show, after I watched everything in full. I was like, okay, it's been 10 months of Yoshioka being back, and they have told this very specific story about him slowly getting to this point again, not lighting the world on fire in Rey de Parejas, getting the high fly flow from Tanahashi, having that short twin gate run into losing it to Kame and Rita in what a lot of people think is one of the 10 best matches of the year. And now we're here. And so they have earned Kakuta versus Yoshioka as a Dreamgate match. They have gone slow enough. They have been patient enough. It makes sense. They've told the story. They've hit the beats. I got it. But this is not a super hot match right now. And they are going to have to do something to heat this sucker up come the end of February. Because if I was in the Fukuoka area, I'd be waiting to buy a ticket to see what they're doing with Shimizu or Tanaka right now before I buy a ticket. This Dreamgate match, I don't think would get me in the building.
No,
and I say that. Sorry to cut you off. I know. I'm gonna continue for 1 second. I realize
no worries, buddy.
I gave you an opening and then I'm gonna cut you off. But I say that as a big Yoshioka fan too, where I assume that he's gonna win the Dreamgate title. But man, they gotta do something. I am so curious to see what that February card is gonna look like, because quite honestly, I don't think just wheeling out in match number 5, Daya, Yoshioka, and Tanaka versus Kikuta, Kai, and Kato, let's say, and then, a DQ finish with a post-match beatdown by Gaja Dokuro. I do not think that is going to be enough. That is not what that match needs. I don't know what it needs, but it needs something, and that specific example I gave is not it.
Yoshioka needs to have momentum and not be coming in off of a win in a tournament that happened by the time that this match happens almost 4 months ago previous.
Yeah. I almost wish, see, it's like, I don't know. And I want to be careful not to spend a lot of time fantasy booking here, but like they need I would like to see like a tug of war gauntlet best of 3 between D Courage and Gaja Dokuro. And you put, Yoshioka in there, likely with Kai, because I think that's probably who has the best chemistry against of the guys that are available, Kai or ISHIN. And you got to let Yoshioka look like a champion, have Daya take a fall, have Tanaka beat somebody, and then have Yoshioka win in the third and final match. Like, I just wonder if seeing him stand alone in the ring with a battle hook and a high fly flow on either ISHIN, who beat him in the King of Gate semifinals, or Kai, who he's always had good chemistry with, I wonder if that's the move there. But I think they're just going to throw him in a trios match, and I think that match is going to be pretty cold in Fukuoka.
No, I mean, that is the worry, and I mean, we will try to see along the way if they give Yoshioka like that clear either momentum or championship feeling moment in that Korakuen coming up on the 5th. We're working our way to the undercard. We had 10-man tag, the entirety of Love and Peace, your Twin Gate champions, Jackie, Kamei, and Rita, and your Triangle Gate champions, Benkei, Hyo, and Mochizuki Jr. versus Paradox, Yamato, Dragon Kid, Hulk, Susumu, and Kage. A perfect scenario to set up a future Twin and Triangle Gate challenger. But Case, I think that they are actually booking in spite of you. Guru Makakari was converted into a Samson driver by Hyo. Love and Peace remain on top 3 weeks into 2026, not dropping falls, no clear champions kind of coming out of this. And this was a not long, but a fun enough 10-man tag with Yamato really having a time with Junior.
Yeah, some real viciousness to the Yamato and Junior stuff, which I liked quite a bit. And really just on the whole, such a fun match. I mean, I really say it with no hint of irony, and really I say it with no hint of fandom. I just think this promotion is so much better off with Love and Peace winning and being featured prominently all the time. And you can set yourself up here, like I remember that Shima and Dragon Kid. It was that long Shima Dragon Kid Twin Gate run where
CK1,
where they did a Twin Gate challenge that was KZ and Maria, and they beat them, and then a few weeks later they did KZ and Hulk, so that would have been Tribe Vanguard, and they were just kind of running through different combinations of units at one point. And for Jackie and Rita, it's like, okay, let's get the Not Hug match, but let's also get the Yamato Susumu match, and let's get the Yamato Doi match, and let's get, the DK Kagatora Twin Gate challenge. Like,
Original Jimmy's,
you're right. Like, I just kind of want to rip the Band-Aid off with this team and just have them defending the Twin Gate belt regularly, and it's a strange thing when Tanaka's got his deal going on with the Brave Gate belt, and we're now talking about him possibly breaking a record. I don't feel as passionately about the Triangle Gate team, although I would like to see them rack up a few more defenses, and it seems like we've plotted out the end of this Dreamgate run, and I think you and I would both be shocked if Kikuta enters March with that title. But for this Twin Gate run, it's like, God, like, even just within the units, even just with Paradox, there's so much untapped potential there. Like, let's just rip through some of these
Sure.
guys. I just want to see more title matches, and I also want to see way more 5-on-5 love and peace matches in 2026. I want to see them 5-on-5 against Gaja Dokuro. I want to see them 5-on-5 against Natural Vibes. Let's get D-Courage, some more guys, throw them in there. Maybe when Monte comes back, he joins a unit, you get him in there. But my God, these 5 guys wrestling together is just so much fun.
I wonder for the Twin Gate situation, we don't have the dates yet announced for Rey de Parejas. I wonder if there's a little bit of, okay, Rey de Parejas probably happening around Osaka right after Uno Dos Tres Dragongate Festival. Maybe it's we don't want them to really be taking challengers and falls, but they're still going to need to get one underway at least for that show. So
you would think they have one in Fukuoka, and then from there, you're off to the races, and we can only hope that we get all of Rey de Parejas on tape this year, and that there's a lot of Kame Rita. And I think with the way that the roster has now shuffled, the disbandment of Z-Brats, the new members of Natural Vibes, it sounds like, I think Marcus Mathers, I could be wrong on this, I'm going to try to get this verified by the next time that we record, but I believe Mathers is sticking around through the beginning of March. Yeah, okay, through Fukuoka. So he's not somebody that I would put in Rey de Parejas anyways, but you've got a lot of new blood, and I want to see all of that new blood wrestle Kame and Rita.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm here with you on
what are the Paradox teams you would do in Rey de Parejas this year? Would you do Dragon Kid and Susumu and Yamato and Kagatora?
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll get Doi or not.
I don't think you'll get Doi, and then if you don't get Doi, then you don't have to find a partner for Hulk. So I think I like the idea of Yamato and Susumu and DK and Kagatora. I like the idea of Yamato and Kage and DK and Susumu. I don't want them to do Yamato, DK, and Susumu and Kage. I think that even though, yes, it's original Jimmies, we've seen a lot of original Jimmies since Paradox, and they're champions in Ryukyu Dragon Pro Wrestling. I don't think you need to have them as that pairing in this tournament.
Yeah, no, that's the least interesting. So Doi worked Rey de Parejas 2023 and 2024. He did not work Rey de Parejas last year. If he was going to work it this year, God, I would like to see like Doi and Kimura instead of Doi and Hulk. But I loved the Yamato Susumu tag team from 2 years ago, and I would be happy if they ran that back. But I think DK and Susumu and Yamato and Kagatora are the most interesting Paradox combinations there.
I'm with you on that. Match 2, speaking of match 3 was the return of Hamare, who came out to do the save for Cielo in Osaka last week. Hamare and Cielo Osai Patra versus the former Twin Gate champions Kota Minoura and Jason Lee. This match did not really get going too far much. We did get some good action before Yoshiki Kato ran in on the outside, pulled out Cielo, ripped the mask. Kokushi got involved. Hamari took a couple pretty bad ones from that and then ate the Golden Rose to get the win. So Minoli and Gaja Dokuro winning with that fashion. Pretty effective match and angle. And then afterwards on the microphone, Yoshiki Kato claims he knows who Cielo is after he unmasked them, and he's not going to forget and come after him. In case, I think that might be perhaps one of the only indications that we've had so far that there might be a cage match coming in the future, because that's the kind of thing that you do in the lead up to a steel cage survival match in Dragon Gate.
Now, I gave a big monologue last week about how El Cielo is El Cielo and they're not going to unmask him, and he means more as this character. Well,
yeah.
I still think he's holding on to that mask. I don't see the return of Nishikawa / Revolution presented as such coming anytime soon. And I'm going to stand by that until I have more information. But it is funny that the week after I talked about that they're now teasing either a mask versus hair match or a cage match of some sort. And that is just very funny timing.
Yeah. Fun to see Cielo and Hamare have 2-on-2 chemistry. That was kind of the one takeaway I got of the little bit of match that we had.
I would imagine, speaking of, I mean, I would think that's the Rey de Parejas team this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll do with Shun.
Well, there was kind of like I don't know if I would read it into it. There was a mention of where is Johnny? I mean, I don't think Johnny would do a tag league though. That's the thing. It doesn't make sense.
I don't think so either. And I said this when I was recording with Fred a few days ago. You know, the Valletta thing, I mean, I wrote at length about how much I love the Valletta arc. If he never came back, I would not be upset. To me, they told the Gianni Valletta story, and it makes it more complicated with him being in
Sure.
Saipatra and Saipatra kind of being a complicated unit. But if he comes back, great. I'll welcome him with open arms. I obviously think the world of him as a wrestler, and I think the world of that character. I don't need him anymore, though. We got the run. You know, we got the story. We got the Dreamgate match. We got the better Dreamgate match. I think I'm good on Valletta.
No. I understand that, and I don't know where you go to next with him. I mean, that's that is kind of the big question about him coming back. Is okay, now you have to do something to make it make sense with him, and I mean the biggest argument is that Saipatra really badly needs to have some time where they have more than just 2 or 3 people around, and that usually is not a good enough reason for that kind of thing, for just filling out numbers for someone who's been treated that kind of way. So I don't know, really.
Let me ask you a lore related question, because this is not rhetorical. I'm trying to jog my memory. If Monte comes back and joins Saipatra, can they justify that in storyline?
The 2 people that I feel like that you really have to you've got to do the legwork are Shun and Daya, and Shun and Monte. I think you have to do some legwork there.
They should have had Kimura join Saipatra in October. The further we get from that, the more. I know that was soon for him. You know, that would have been a very expedited process. Kimura should be in this unit. I think that would make everything easier on everybody.
Yeah. And it'd make card composition a lot easier too.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the roster, and you're not going to put Ultimo, Fuji, Mochi, Genki, Kanda anywhere. Let's keep Yoshida away from anything that I care about. And so you're kind of, Daiki's got a spot now. No. Sahara's got a spot now. I don't really think Fuda fits in there. I mean, maybe, but I don't really think so.
I mean, Fuda's the one now where you raise your eyebrow, but that's neither here nor there to this conversation.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know with him. I don't know. I don't want him in Love and Peace. I don't want anybody in or out of Love and Peace. I will say this: if I was booking Rey de Parejas and I had to submit everything, let's say there's no unit changes from here through the beginning of March when we assume this tournament
things get locked for the tournament.
Yeah, things get locked. I say this not as a joke. I am doing Cielo and Hamare in one block, and I am doing Shun and Jiro in the other. And I am having Jiro lose every match, and Shun's just a non-factor in Rey de Parejas, and we just move on from there.
Yeah, let me rest up.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Speaking of some of those rookies, match 2 was Doi and the part-timer. So Doi, Owashi, Mondai Ryu, and Punch Tominaga versus Ultimo and the kids. Ultimo, Daiki, Yanagi, Akihiro, Sahara, and Kazuma Kimura. And I know I've talked a lot of references to this match so far on this episode, Case. I'm only 3 stars on this match, but I fully believe that 3 stars is as high as one can get out of this combination at this portion of the card. Daiki gets the win with the Sable Bomb, which is their name for the tequila shot pen on Punch Tominaga. Over delivered, I felt like Kimura versus Doi needs to happen anytime they have Doi on the shows and they don't have anything better for him to do. He should have to face off against Kazuma Kimura because the 2 of them have definite clear chemistry. And easy highlight, everyone was efforting through this match. Just a fun undercard tag and the best card possible result coming out of this pairing.
Yeah, this is the best possible outcome of a match like this. And you're right, the Kimura Doi stuff was noticeable. Him intercepting a Bakatari sliding kick with the judo throw got me off of my couch and jumping around. That's what I like to see. And then also the rocket punch attempt from Tamanaga that was intercepted in midair by a Sahara football tackle was unreal. I mean, this had a lot of things going for it for an 8-man tag, 8-minute undercard match with Ultimo Dragon in it. But man, there was some good stuff here.
Did you love how Ultimo for like the last minute of the match just stayed in the ring? And he was just like, "Oh, the kids got it," and he's just like making sure that it was like he was like supervising a pot of boiled water, and he's like, "Okay, I have to make sure that it seems like everything's going okay. I drop the pasta in. Wait 6 minutes. Daiki's going to win this. Okay, Daiki's going to win this. It's great. Okay, thanks for coming out here, Ultimo. This was an 8-man tag with probably, when you combine it all, 5.5 wrestlers giving their full attention throughout the match, and it was fun."
Loved it.
Opening match was the Dragongate Japan debut of Marcus Mathers as he teamed with Ryoya Tanaka as D Courage versus Strong Machine J and UT. They had an opening mic before this, Gaja Dokuro. Everyone saying Shimizu, KZ coming out, and then them doing Party Anthem going straight into this. Mathers wins the match with a Broad Street Buster into the 450, a real solid debut here, and he fit in really well, especially noticeable like him and Strong Machine J. It felt like that Mathers, there's certain things that I want to see of him throughout this the 6 weeks that he has. This wasn't just like a holy shit Familia de Julia kind of come in here and just blow people's minds kind of start, but I think he acquitted himself well. The crowd was interested in him, and it's just a good start for him on what could be a really productive excursion for him.
Very, very bullish on Marcus Mathers in Dragon Gate. And you're right. The presentation of his debut was very different than, say, when Peter Casa came into the promotion, and it was all about, look at the big moves this guy can do. And I'm much more of a fan in the long run of what they did with Mathers here, where it was a very simple match. He was in there with Strong Machine J. He was in there with UT. He was in there with two guys that are not going to let that match fall apart just in case he was in over his head, but he wasn't. And the thing that jumped out to me there, because of his build, because of the fact that he has a little bit of size on this roster, especially compared to normally the guys that he's wrestling in America. He just looks so much bigger in Japan and bigger in front of this Dragon Gate roster, is I thought his strikes looked absolutely phenomenal. And that is the type of thing that, you and I were talking about. Okay, by February in Kobe, is he ready for a big enough spot? Can he work an 8-man Atomicos match post intermission? And I do get the sense that in a big chaotic Dragon Gate match, that is the sort of thing that can set him apart. Yes, he has that crazy athleticism. Yes, he's going to be good at a lot of different things. And I do think that he'll end up assimilating himself incredibly well on this roster. But the thing that jumped out to me early on, just through the first match, was, man, he throws strikes like a beast compared to the rest of this roster.
Yeah, no, and it does feel like that he is he's going to be put into scenarios where I feel like he's going to be able to kind of achieve with that. They did do this the thing of, they had him on Twitter at 82 kilos, but they announced him at 84. I think we can maybe move off of the idea of him getting a Brave Gate shot before he's out of here, but they have enough confidence of him that, looking at the shows that will not be making the network that we have cards for right now, he's main eventing with Daya and Yoshioka in Shizuoka on Saturday, and then he is
who's that against?
Kakuta and Minoli.
God, I'd really like to see that.
And then they have him with Ryoya and Yoshioka against Kakuta, Kai, and Ishin. I mean, we're talking about how we kind of are a little bit trepidatious about what we're going to get in Fukuoka and how they're going to build and get those moments for Yoshioka where we're able to kind of like buy in to that kind of thing. But coincidentally, those matches where you expect them to have those like previews against Kakuta, it's not the three of D Courage and Mathers wrestling Jiro Shimbashi. It's Mathers being involved in those kinds of situations, which to me tells you the level of faith they already have in the guy. At least.
I'm excited for him. I'm really curious to see how he does on this tour. I was very not impressed by what I saw because I don't think he did anything that extraordinary, but he kind of delivered to the degree that I was hoping he was going to, which is that from match number 1, he looked like a very competent wrestler who's going to be able to hang with the speed of this roster. So I am quite excited to see what he does going forward.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be excited to see what he gets announced for the next show that will be on the network. Is that Memorial Gate on the 1st, and we're a good ways out from that. I don't expect to see a card for that before next week. But Case, that was the Korakuen from Sunday, the first ever Sunday afternoon matinee Korakuen for Dragongate. And as I said at the top of the show, talking about is walking away from the show, incredibly excited to see the path that we're on, getting to Fukuoka for Uno Dos Tres. How about you?
I'm quite excited. I really love this Korakuen Hall show. If you missed it, I highly recommend giving it a watch from start to finish. I don't really think this is a show that you can cherry pick all that much of. If anything, you can, I guess, skip the Cielo Homare tag, but even that had pretty major storyline implications to it. So this is a 2.5 hour Korakuen Hall show that you should be able to sit down and watch all the way through. And it was really enjoyable from start to finish.
Absolutely. And we will be back. Case will be back when we're talking about Memorial Gate. We'll be back in the feed next week with something. It is going to be Dragongate related. There's certain parts of it I'm still kind of figuring out here. But buddy, before we get out of here, anything else you want to touch on?
30 seconds on the Noah Monday Magic show that happened this week. Alejandro, who we all really like, and he was at one point a former Twin Gate champion with Kaito Kiyomiya. He wrestled Ryoya Tanaka in a match that went to a 10-minute time limit draw, and it was pretty exhibition-y, but it was also pretty clear that those guys have a great match in them. And then later on that card, Doi wrestled Kiyomiya in a match that you specifically need to watch because we kind of got territory Doi. It was a very specific Naruki Doi performance that I think you would eat up. So my recommendations
I have
on
it
both of
on
those.
my queue. It is my next show up when I have time.
Yeah,
so,
no, you'll get a kick out of Doi versus Kiyomiya, but people should watch Tanaka versus Alejandro because they went to a 10-minute time limit draw. They talked about how, okay, we did a draw, we need to wrestle again. Maybe headlining a Monday Magic show next time. But as we keep tabs on Tanaka and his Bravegate defenses, that is a very easy and worthwhile one that they should be doing. I would love to see Tanaka versus Alejandro for that title.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I'm much more up on this, and I'm glad that what's his name that I can't stand from Noah transferred to DDT, so we don't have to have him versus Daya again.
Oh, Junta.
Yeah, I have no use for Junta Miyawaki.
I think he's fine. It's going to be like, that's a story that you and I think are specifically keeping an eye on because for, right now he's in Noah and DDT. If Junta leaves Noah, it opens up the door for something. Not that Junta Miyawaki is keeping anybody out of Noah. It's not like he has that level of political stroke, but I've always told people, without getting into the very specifics of it, Kento and Takuma will never wrestle in Pro Wrestling Noah as long as Junta Miyawaki is on that roster. And if he's now in DDT, then that is at least something. I mean, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they're going to be AAA house show guys for life. But
I mean,
it's interesting.
Did you see who Kento posted a selfie with from last week?
It was Alex Shelley.
Oh no, it was with one. I don't know his exact position now, but at least at one time, NXT head coach Matt Bloom.
Oh, Kento with Matt Bloom. It was Takuma posted a selfie with Alex Shelley today, saying that he used to be a big Time Splitters fan, which makes sense. At one point, Takuma Fujiwara, one hell of a wrestler. At one point, not anymore, but.
And at one point, we all were Time Splitter fans.
We had it so good for just a short period of time. It was just so special.
Hey, with the way that the wrestling world is working, maybe that Bloom being there might be the way to get them on some Monday Magic because they have not. I don't think we're going to see them in Glate anytime soon. So I don't know. They
haven't wrestled in Glate in a year. They're not. I mean, they're not Glate wrestlers anymore.
No, they never were though. They were freelancing at that point.
They do low level Mexican Indies and AAA house shows, and that's just who they are. And I will be happy to be proven wrong because I would love to see them get another real shot in pro wrestling. But I just have a hard time believing that the most racist wrestling company on the planet, which is specifically WWE AAA, and I do believe at some point they will be booking AAA shows with only white guys on them. I just have a hard time seeing them going, you know what? We need these rail thin 5'5" Japanese guys for our lucha promotion.
5'5".
Maybe 5'3".
I mean, one of them. One is 5'6" and one might be 5'1". Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's I just don't see that happening. I'm sorry. Again,
no,
I think they're actively going, can we book these shows without Mexicans? Do we need the Mexicans on this lucha show? What if we just put white guys in masks? And I'm not seeing a contract coming their way. I hope I'm wrong. I would genuinely love to see them have another shot in wrestling, but I don't think it's going to be there.
They have a contract, I think, to be fair, but it's not any contract of any sort of evolution or elevation with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, buddy, we'll be back and talk in a couple of weeks. I hope you survive your time in Orlando.
No, a big work trip to Universal Studios coming up. It should be very interesting.
and you're not a coaster guy whatsoever.
No,
not
knowledge. Really an amusement park guy. Not really amused by them. So yeah, it should be an interesting few days.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. Send case messages of hope at _ in your case on Twitter. I'm at Fujii. That's it from the Voice Gate. We hope you all have a great rest of your week. Take care, everyone.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragongate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragongate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Hello, Voices of Wrestling listener. Dave Ryan here. Have you ever wondered to yourself how many hidden gems are hidden away inside the last years of World Championship Wrestling? Have you ever asked yourself how many tenuous gags can be made about the name Mike Enos? And have you ever thought about what it sounds like for two Irishmen to interpret a very chaotic company through its B show? The answers to all this and more are just a click away. Check out Days of Thunder every second Thursday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.